And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this Friday, the 27th day of May 2022. 20 degrees and sunny right here in Brisbane. A glorious day, I must say. And it's good to see the sun out and, of course, taking that moisture away from the atmosphere where everything was feeling damp and moist. And, of course, we had a lot of problems with mildew in many of the places. Well, right now, with the Queensland weather coming back, we might be back on track. And it's good to see that the river is open once again, though in limited capacity. The ferries are running, so not all of the ferry terminals are open. So if you're planning a trip down, make sure that you check with your TransLink and other information service providers first before you come down to the river. But of course, all the riverside restaurants, the ones that are open, as we know, Massimo, and there's many others which are still under renovation after the floods. They're still not open. But the ones that are open, they're getting more people these days. They're getting all fully booked out. So wonderful. So today we have in this first segment the news, and then we'll finish off with our daily India report today, and we'll try and look at what's happening in the weekend. We know there's lots of functions and events that are taking place. We'll try and bring to you an update of all of those today. Well, right now, let's get into the news for today. And the first news is, well, Western Australia goes to Labor too.
While calls for climate action have been getting louder, Australia's industrial emissions have quietly been going up.
1 in 5 of the fossil fuel companies that have been covered by the scheme have actually exceeded their approved emissions.
The Safeguard Mechanism, as it's called, monitors 215 of Australia's biggest greenhouse gas emitters, and about a third of those facilities are here in WA, covering everything from oil and gas plants to alumina refineries and iron ore mines. These facilities produced 41 million tonnes of CO2 equivalent in 2016-17. With some new projects coming online, that figure had increased to 45.9 million tonnes by 2020-21. And to put that in some perspective, that's about half of WA's total carbon footprint of 91.9 million tonnes, according to the latest figures.
Our big question is, when will the large emitters in Western Australia do their bit?
Together we can end the climate wars.
The new government has pledged to strengthen the Safeguard Mechanism, setting steeper limits for emissions to reach Labour's target of a 43% cut in emissions by 2030.
We'd be really interested in mechanisms that required companies to stop production if they show that they can't seriously abate the carbon that is required.
Woodside Energy, whose North West Shelf gas plant is one of WA's biggest emitters, says it would be fine with tougher limits.
Woodside has a commitment to reduce our own net equity Scope 1 and 2 emissions by 30% by 2030.
Among other measures, the company's planted thousands of hectares of trees across its properties in WA to capture carbon.
There are sectors of the economy that are very hard to decarbonise, so offsets have to be part of the solution.
But conservation groups argue there's little chance of being able to meet climate targets with more big projects coming on stream.
The big question is, how will Australia meet that 43% reduction if we're ramping up large fossil fuel projects?
What everyone seems to agree on is the need for certainty on climate policy. Claire Moody, ABC News.
And a slightly different accent there from Claire, but right now, yes, and as was said, that together we can win this war. The change, well, my take on that is that you will never end or win the war on climate change. That will always be there. Of course, we can better look after the environment, control whatever is within our means, but nature will eventually take its own course. The world, as it is today, is not what it used to be before. And even if no one did anything, nature would have taken its course. There have been earthquakes, there have been floods, there have been volcanic eruptions and things like that that changed the surface of the earth, changed the course. So nature has its own way. Of course, looking after the environment, keeping the pollution levels down, keeping neat and clean and all those kind of things. Yes, we can do that so that we can control the, the health and the pandemic levels and things like that. But the war will be an ongoing process, never one way it's done and that's it. There will be more challenges all along the way. New things will come out. At the moment, everyone's just talking about carbon reduction. There are other things that are yet to be discovered as we progress. Well, here we are. Right now, let's look at this case here, which has been going on for a while. Lengthy back and forth with the school over the formal dress, which even has ended up in the Human Rights Commission.
Emmy Leo had to fight to wear a dress to the City Point Christian College formal last year. She left the school over the controversial enrolment contracts in January.
We were devastated that the school would go to that length, and we felt that it was potentially prompted by Emmy attending the formal in the dress.
The contracts demanded families denounce homosexuality and that students identify by their birth gender only.
In issuing that contract, City Point committed an act of discrimination which was against the law. And when you break the law, there is consequences.
Parents and students have lodged their complaints to the Human Rights Commission under the Queensland Anti-Discrimination Act.
I experienced sort of firsthand the discrimination that occurred in the school and the hurtful things that were taught out against us. So yeah, that is one reason I am bringing this complaint forward, just because I experienced it.
The school withdrew the contracts after a week of intense media scrutiny and the former principal resigned. Parents and students are calling for policy change to ensure it doesn't happen again.
Our schools need to be safe places for children, and I don't think that religious belief should be an excuse to discriminate against our children.
It's time for change. It's time for that change to happen in school policies. It's time for that change to happen in federal laws. It's time that we stand up and protect our kids.
City Point Christian College declined to comment. Louisa Rebgetz.
And of course, there is another subject which we have discussed before, that when the sexual orientation of a person is used to discriminate against, that is just never on. But it could not be put in the same basket as religious vilification or religious discrimination. Two different things. As when the original PAMD came out, which was the Property Dealers and Real Estate Act, were put together. Again, two different, similar things when it comes to sales, but completely different scenarios dealing with, when we look at houses, someone's largest investment in their life, and you can't compare that to a used car. So, things like that. I don't believe that religion and sexual orientation should be placed in the same basket. The conversation has to be had on both the topics, but they are two different topics, as we say. Well, right now, what's happening with the Queensland palliative care?
The Dunlop family is ticking off their bucket list.
Being on a plane, we've been on a boat, we've been camping.
This Gold Coast holiday is the next item for 5-year-old Kyron.
Try and get everything done just so that we can say, Kyron's done all this stuff, and we've done it as a family.
Kyron was diagnosed with Krabbe disease when he was just 9 months old. It's a genetic disorder which affects the nervous system, leaving patients with a life expectancy of about 2 years.
It is the worst thing that you could ever go through. But we've had time to be able to go, all right, it is really sad, and it is, but we can't waste his life by being sad.
That's where palliative care comes in.
We try to help the families do as much living as they can before that time comes.
When the time does come, there are services like Hummingbird House.
Every year, hundreds of sick kids and their families are cared for here at Queensland's only children's hospice. It provides precious support for families that doesn't just end when their child dies.
And what that means is that the families don't have to say goodbye as soon as the child dies, but that they're able to spend time with the child's body afterwards, and given chance for grandparents and siblings and aunties and uncles to actually come and say goodbye and to have the last cuddle if they want to.
While it doesn't make the journey any easier, the Dunlops think talking about the end stages helps reduce the fear.
It's not a scary thing. It's just normal life, so you just roll with the punches that you've been given, I guess, and just, move forward.
Hummingbird House will be where the Dunlops go in the end.
It's familiar with the kids, and we can do what we need to do, cry when we need to cry, laugh if we need to laugh, and there's people there that can support us all the way through it.
Elizabeth Cramsey, ABC News.
And right now, let's go to New South Wales and look at the ambulance situation there.
It's been a challenging 2 years for paramedics like Tess Oxley, but the situation has only worsened in recent weeks.
It's just so draining, both physically and mentally, with the workload that we just cannot keep up with.
The ambulance service is facing unprecedented demand as it grapples with a spike in flu cases, COVID and staff illness. Last month, ambulances attended 116,000 calls. That's only slightly down from 119,000 in January during the Omicron peak.
As at today, we've got just over 2,000 staff furloughed off the health system. So what we're seeing is massive pressure in emergency departments.
Unions say adding to the delays is ambulance ramping, where ambulances are forced to idle outside hospitals waiting for patients to be admitted. They're calling for 2,000 extra staff to help address the problem.
The first time we heard of status 3, which means that the ambulance service is overwhelmed, was in November of last year. We hadn't heard of it before, and now we're hearing of it on a regular weekly basis.
The situation has prompted one union, the Australian Paramedics Association, to call for 2 weeks of industrial action.
As of next week, ambulance paramedics will not be taking any billing information from patients, and we will not be filling in any key performance indicators.
The state government says another 750 paramedics have been employed in the past 2 years.
I joined the job to help people, and that's not happening now, and that's my core thing. That's what I go to work every day to do, so I can't do my job.
A job that for many just keeps getting harder. Husnia Shams, ABC News, Sydney.
Jobs are getting harder. Well, of course, so that is one area where, I have a lot of respect. I've been on the receiving end of the service that the paramedics supply, and may I say that they do an amazing job. And it is hard to see that sometimes there are people who get abusive and they get very uptight, because once when I was taken in an ambulance at the hospital, there was a sign that, zero tolerance and whatever. Then I questioned it, why is all these signs? They say, you have no idea what we go through. Many times, we get abused and yelled at and everything. So they're there to do a service. They're there, to help you, at sometimes risking their own lives, so they're there doing a very, very vital service, so have respect for them. And I hope that the authorities look at, when they're looking at the conditions and the wages and everything of everyone, all the workers, this is one sector which really, really needs the attention of the public to back them up, and also government to take some affirmative, corrections in there as well. Well, ladies and gentlemen, right now let's go to our daily India report, and we'll finish off with by functions and events for this weekend. And time permitting, we might have one or two other clips to view before we finish.
Welcome to the Daily India Report that brings you reports, interviews, features and much more on India and the Indian diaspora. Sri Lankan Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was made Finance Minister by President Gotabaya.
Sri Lanka's Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe was appointed Finance Minister of the debt-ridden country on May 25th by President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, an official statement said. Wickremesinghe, 73, was sworn in as the Minister of Finance, Economic Stability and National Policies. The five-time Prime Minister was reappointed to the job on May 12th following the political circus precipitated by the unprecedented economic crisis in the island's history. He replaced Mahinda Rajapaksa, who resigned to make way for his brother's plan to appoint an all-party interim government to handle the economic crisis. Wickremesinghe's office said during the 2 weeks he had been at the helm, he had re-established the island's foreign relations, taken steps for constitutional reform with the draft of the 21 amendments to the constitution, endured fuel supplies, and has been making preparations for an interim budget. Wickremesinghe, with just his seat in the 225-member assembly, relies on all the political parties to support him in his immediate task of reviving the ailing economy. Sri Lanka declared bankruptcy in mid-April, saying that it was unable to meet its international debt payments this year. The country has just started negotiations with the IMF for a possible bailout that Rajapaksa administration had been ignoring. Wickremesinghe took over at a time when the street protests were raging against the government for its mishandling of the economy. For months, people have been forced to stay in long lines to buy the limited stocks. Sri Lanka has suspended repayment of about $7 billion in foreign loans due this year, out of $25 billion to be repaid by 2026. The country's total foreign debt is $51 billion. The crisis has already forced Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa, the elder brother of President, to resign on May 9th, and inflation rates spiraling towards 40%, shortages of food, fuel and medicines and rolling power blackouts have led to nationwide protests and a plunging currency, with the government short of foreign currency reserves it needed to pay for imports.
Char Dham Yatra resumes as the weather clears up in the Indian state of Uttarakhand.
The Char Dham Yatra was resumed on 25th May morning as the weather improved, with pilgrims waiting in Sonprayag, Gaurikund and Janki-Chatti allowed to proceed to the Himalayan temples. The pilgrimage had to be halted temporarily for the second consecutive day on Tuesday due to snowfall and rain on Char Dham routes. The weather turned normal on 25th May and pilgrims who were asked to wait in Sonprayag, Gaurikund and Janki-Chatti on the way to the temples for safety reasons were permitted to resume their onward journey, Kedarnath Badrinath Temple Committee has said. The helicopter services to Kedarnath, which had also been suspended due to bad weather, have been resumed. A record 9,69,610 pilgrims have visited Badrinath, Kedarnath, Gangotri and Yamunotri in less than 1 month since the start of the Yatra on May 3rd.
After the wheat export ban, India imposes restrictions on the sugar exports from June 1st, 2022.
India has imposed restrictions on sugar exports from June 1st, a move aimed at increasing the availability of the commodity in the domestic market and curbing price rise. Export of sugar, raw, refined and white sugar is placed under restricted category from June 1st, 2022 onwards, the Directorate General of Foreign Trade said in a notification. However, it said that these restrictions would not be applicable to sugar being exported to the EU and the EOS under CXL and TRQ. A specified amount of sugar is exported to these regions under CXL and TRQ. In a statement, the government said that with a view to maintaining domestic availability and price stability of sugar in the country during sugar season 2021-2022, October to September, it has decided to regulate the sugar exports with effect from June 1st. The government has decided to allow export of sugar up to 100 lakh metric tons with a view to maintaining the domestic availability and price stability during the sugar season 2021-2022, October to September, it said. As per the order issued by DGFT with effect from 1st June 2022 till 31st October 2022 or till further order, whichever is earlier, the export of sugar will be allowed with specific permission of the Directorate of Sugar, Department of Food and Public Distribution, it said.
Death toll in the Assam floods rises to 28, over 5 lakh people affected in 15 districts.
The death toll from pre-monsoon floods in Assam state on May 25th rose to 28 as 2 more deaths were reported, officials said. Adding 5.75 lakh people in the state's 15 districts were affected. The flood situation, however, is said to have improved marginally. Officials of the Assam State Disaster Management Authority said that an inter-ministerial central team of 6 members would be on a 2-day visit to the flood-ravaged state beginning May 27th to assess the damage caused to the properties, crops, loss of lives and other aspects. The ASDMA officials said that the team led by Ravinesh Kumar, Financial Advisor, National Disaster Management Authority of the Home Ministry, would visit Kachar, Dima, Hasao, Dharan, Nagaon, and Hojai districts to assess the extent of the loss caused by rain-induced floods and landslides. According to the officials, at least 5,75,470 people, including 1,15,314 children of 1,073 villages, have been affected in 15 of the state's 34 districts. Of the 28 deaths, 23 died in the floods and the remaining 5 in landslides in different districts. The Army, the Indian Air Force, the Assam Rifles, various paramilitary forces, National Disaster Response Force, the State Disaster Response Force, Civil Defence along with district administrations continue to work round the clock to rescue the stranded people and to provide relief to the marooned men, women and children.
26-year-old from the Indian state of Haryana becomes the Indian Army's first woman combat aviator.
Having grown up in military cantonments across the country, joining the forces was a natural career choice for Captain Abhilasha Barak. On May 25th, the 26-year-old from Haryana became the first Indian woman combat aviator in the Indian Army. Captain Barak graduated at a ceremony held at Combat Army Aviation Training School in Nashik. DG of the Army Aviation A.K. Suri was a chief guest at the event. While growing up in the military cantonments and being surrounded by people in uniform, it always seemed like an ordinary affair. I never realized that it was different until our family moved out of the military after my father's retirement in 2011. The feeling only grew stronger after seeing my elder brother's passing out parade at the Indian Military Academy in 2013. That was the moment I knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, Captain Barak said in an interview shared recently by the Indian Army. Captain Barak is an alumnus of the Lawrence School, Sanawar. She completed her graduation with B.Tech in Electronics and Communications Engineering from Delhi Technological University in 2016 and was placed at Deloitte, USA.
Indian Railways to launch the Sri Ramayana Yatra train on June 21st.
The Indian Railway Catering and Tourism Corporation is set to launch an 18-day Sri Ramayana Yatra through a special tourist train on June 21st to take pilgrims to sacred places associated with the life of Lord Rama, officials said on May 25th. Booking is on for the tour on the Ramayana circuit by Bharat Gaurav tourist train, which will start from Delhi Sabdarjan railway station on June 21st. The 18-day journey by train, which has 11 third AC class coaches with accommodation capacity of around 600 passengers, will cost a passenger Rs 62,370, the official said. The tour package aims at realizing devotees' dreams to visit places where Lord Ram, his wife Goddess Sita and brother Lord Lakshman had set foot while undertaking an exile in the forest for 14 years. The train will run on the Ramayana circuit identified under the Swadesh Darshan scheme, covering prominent places that include Ayodhya, Janakpur in Nepal, Sitamarhi, Buxar, Varanasi, Prayagraj, Shringverpur, Chitrakoot, Nashik, Hampi, Rameshwaram, Kanchipuram, Bhadrachalam, also known as Ayodhya of the South. This is for the first time that a tourist train will go from India to Nepal and connect the two religious cities of Ayodhya and Janakpur. The porting points apart from Delhi are Aligarh, Tundla, Kanpur and Lucknow. The cost of the ticket is uniform irrespective of the station passenger boards from. The tour plan includes food, stay in the hotel and guide services at the points of visit. The interiors of Bharat Gaurav tourist train, which will return to Delhi on the 18th day of its journey, covering roughly a distance of around 8,000 kilometers, will be based on the Ramayana epic.
Bollywood director Karan Johar turns 50th. Bollywood celebs turn up for the birthday bash.
Karan Johar hosted a massive birthday bash in Mumbai city in the honor of his 50th birthday on 25th May. Several stars such as Kareena Kapoor, Malaika Arora, Alia Bhatt, Aishwarya Rai, Abhishek Bachchan, besides many others, attended the party. Gauri Khan and her son Aryan Khan were clicked as they arrived at the party. Moreover, Rani Mukherjee and Kajol were also there. The bash took place at the Yash Raj Studios in Mumbai, and the first star spotted at the party was the birthday boy himself. The filmmaker stepped on the red carpet of his party wearing a blingy green tuxedo, which he teamed up with a white shirt, a bow tie and a pair of black pants. He was joined by Dharma Productions CEO Apurva Mehta. Apurva was spotted wearing a smart suit. Tiger Shroff also made his way to the party. Shanai Kapoor turned heads with her bold black gown. Shweta Bachchan opted for a red outfit for the party. Hrithik Roshan made his way to the party with his girlfriend Sabah Azad by his side. Amir Khan walked the red carpet with X5 Kiran Rao, and many other stars were seen at the party. Shah Rukh Khan's son Aryan Khan, Vicky Kaushal and Katrina Kaif, Anushka Sharma and many more were in attendance. That's all in today's bulletin.
And thank you very much for that update on today. Well, right now, as I mentioned before, let's finish off with the upcoming events for Brisbane. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's about all we have time for you in today's segment, and it's been wonderful having your company as usual. So, hey, it's Friday, and thank God it's Friday. There's a lot happening this weekend. Tomorrow we have the United Nations Peace March at King George Square, ending up at Anzac Square today at 11 a.m. in half an hour's time. The Premier will be unveiling that plaque for the Indigenous soldiers of Australia, which is again a very, very good move. And of course, on Sunday, there are many functions that have been planned, including a HOTA, which is the Hindu organizations of associations meeting together at the Baptist Swaminarayan Temple. So there's so many things that are happening. Stay up to date with Australian Indian Radio and Brisbane Indian Times. Join our subscribers list, that way you can get a notification on Friday through our EDM services. And of course, if you have any topic that you'd like to talk about, join us here on the show. You can join us by audio means, or you can come into the studio, or you can join via a video link. And of course, on Monday, Queensland Multicultural Council will be holding its Reconciliation Week and the Sorry Day function at the Parliament House. So our show on Monday will be late. It will be later in the day. So until tomorrow, it's goodbye from us. Tomorrow we'll bring to you the weekend edition.